Hello!
Hello!
We are in the capital of the Highlands, just outside Inverness railway station, which is a clue
To what we're doing.
to what we're doing. How long is it since I shouted, "Train!"
Oh, since I nearly crashed.
People are looking at me now,
Oh,
weird.
well, it don't matter.
Right, let's go inside the station and show you what we're up to.
Yes.
We've driven just over an hour and a half from our home up in the far north down to Inverness, where tonight we're catching the Caledonian Sleeper train to London, swapping the peace and solitude of the Highlands for the hustle and bustle in the big smoke. Although I have heard it's not quite as smoky as it used to be. If you're passing through Inverness station at this time in March, don't expect a bustling hub of activity. There's a Costa, a bar, a WH Smith and a coffee shop. But when we arrived, they were all shut. At least the trains were still awake though, and that's enough to keep you occupied if you enjoy a bit of train spotting.
You can just see the departure board just up above my right shoulder. Our train's on there. It departs at 9:15 and it's the Caledonian Sleeper train down to London,
Yay.
London Euston. The trip's going to take us about 11 hours. It arrives into London just before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we're very, very excited. We can actually board the train from 8 o'clock, which I think is about now, isn't it?
Out now.
Let's go and get it.
Tonight, we've been powered by the impressive Rail Freight Loco 66303 and 73971. While most of the journey will be driven by diesel power, once we pass through the rugged Scottish Highlands, a Class 92 electric loco will take over, gliding us smoothly down the electrified section of the West Coast Main Line, the rest of the way into London Euston. The Caledonian Sleeper train starts its journey from Inverness with these 6 sleek Class 5 coaches. One of them is dedicated solely to seating, 4 of them offer a blend of private rooms which I'll give you a sneak peek at in a little while, and the other coach is the club car where you can relax with a drink and get yourself a bite to eat. The train's scheduled to leave at 8:45, but we're allowed to board at 8 o'clock, which is good because it gives us a chance to get comfy before the real adventure begins. We're in coach J, room 5, and once we got on, I noticed just how tight these narrow corridors are. It's definitely going to be a squeeze if somebody starts walking towards you. It's a bit like being back on the boat, I suppose. Space? What space? You get an electronic keycard to unlock your door. You just hold it against the lock and the green light flashes like magic. It's like the train's way of saying, come in, but don't get too comfy. Now, I'm not going to lie, despite it being a club room, it is tiny. It's 180 centimetres long, 134 centimetres wide, which is about 5'10" by 4'5" in old money. But the bed eats up half of the room. So it's, well, let's say cosy. Filming a vlog in here, well, it's going to be interesting.
So this is, basically we've got 2 single bunks rather than a double room. We did book the double room, but there was an issue, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. So this is the door.
Where we see me in the door.
Where we came in, you can see Sean in the door. Big mirror on there. The other side of this is next door shower, so we can hear if they're showering. So we've got 2 bunk beds. Right up here, we've got a light, a little reading light. We've got the another reading light there. There you go, big light. We've got a charging point, USB charging point. Over in this corner is a little charging thing. So what you do is basically when you plug stuff in, you put it in there out of the way. It's just like a little shelf.
And then you don't sleep on it.
And then you don't sleep on it. Who's having top bunk? Shotgun.
Okay.
So I'll be sleeping on top. Sean's going to be at bottom again. Okay, so on this one, we've got the heating, so you can turn the heating up and down. You've got another light under there. Big light's gone again. Another USB charger there, and you've got some little bottles of water. We've got some chocolate, and we've got our nighttime sleep kits, which has got earplugs and an eye mask and some soap in there. I'm sure the earplugs and the eye mask is going to come in useful later. We've got an in-room dining menu, because we can either eat in here or we can go down to the club car, which I'll tell you about in a bit. This is the breakfast, and what we have to do is we have to select what we want for breakfast, and we have to hang this on our knob outside within 30 minutes of setting off from Inverness, and somebody will come and collect it off our knob. And it's basically our breakfast order so that we get what we want for breakfast. Under here, you can have up to 3 bags per person, 2 bits of luggage and a handbag. If it's really big or oversized, there's some bigger lockers further down the train and you have to ask the staff to put your stuff in there. So there's another gubbins at the back here. We've got two 13 amp sockets.
Gubbins, is that technical?
It is technical term. We've got two more USB sockets in there. We've got the host call, which is like, you remember in the olden days and you used to ring a bell and somebody would come?
Yeah, that's the bell.
That's the bell. And then there's a light for the window above there. I'm not going to do that because we haven't set off yet. I undid the blind. Oh, we can undo it now. I undid it earlier and a man was looking at me. Across here, we've got a basin and a soap and a pencil. The pencil, I'm guessing, is to fill out the breakfast form.
I'm guessing it is, yes.
To hang on my knob. We've got a little hand towel. And then we've got the shower.
Oh, this is fun.
Come in
It's
the
a
shower.
shower and a toilet.
Come in the shower. So the first thing about the shower is you get a bag of towels. So there's a couple of towels in there that smell quite fresh. There's the shower.
If you notice, it's a sit-down shower.
And you sit, well, you can sit down, but if you do the lid, oh, it's actually the toilet. And it's got toilet roll. I don't know if you're supposed to put the toilet roll down the bog or in that little basket.
No, I think that's just it's just a hole for the toilet roll to actually dip into while you shut the lid.
I thought you put it in the box and then a man from Drumna Drocket comes and takes it away. Is that not right?
No, that's not right.
But I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to having a poo and a shower at the same time.
Oh no!
I've never done that.
No, you can't.
Well, I've never done that on purpose.
You can't anyway.
Why not?
Because then you'll get all the toilet roll back.
You're always looking for reasons not to do things, aren't you? Let me live. I want to live. So we've got about 10-15 minutes before, I was going to say before we take off.
Before we take off?
Before we start moving very slowly.
Before we depart.
Out of Inverness. And then I think we're going to go and get something to eat, aren't we?
We are.
Okay, just between you and me. You know I've got my quirks, right? I try my best to deal with the triggers of my high-functioning autism and ADHD, which together always try and do the best to bring me down with a combination of anxiety and panic. So the idea of being stuck in this tiny cabin for the night, yeah, it's already stirring some worries. That's why I booked the bigger room, because at least I can give myself enough space to sit up in bed without banging my head on the ceiling. I'm not the kind of person who can just close my eyes, think happy thoughts, or imagine myself in some huge open space and breathe deeply. I always try my hardest to deal with this kind of stuff, but when I fail, it can ruin trips, so keep your fingers crossed.
There's actually 2 sleeper trains, Caledonian sleeper trains. Well, actually, no. Actually, there's 5 Caledonian sleeper trains.
Yes.
But actually, there isn't. There's 2.
There's one.
It's weird. So we're on the train from Inverness down to London Euston. But there's also going to be one setting off from Fort William, and there's going to be one setting off from Aberdeen. And we're all going to meet in Edinburgh and join together. And then we all go down to London Euston together as one big train, about 16 coaches.
Really?
And then another one comes from Glasgow, and that meets one from Edinburgh, and they join together at Carstairs, and then they go down to London as one.
Wow.
It's my head's hurting already. I'm ready for a whiskey.
So when you come back up, you've got to make sure you're in the right place, otherwise you'll end up in the wrong place.
Well, this is it. If you're on one of the trains from Fort William or Aberdeen, when you get to Edinburgh, some people have to change coaches, and some people will find that, like the club car where you do your dining, isn't where it was before you got to Edinburgh.
Oh my God.
All kinds of which is going to be funny. Sean's had a few whiskies by the time we leave Edinburgh after midnight.
We set off bang on time at 8:45. Believe it or not, trains can be punctual. As we trundled out of Inverness, we made a beeline for the club car, determined to grab some food and drink before the rush. One of the perks of travelling at this time of year is that the train isn't packed. In fact, there's a lot of empty rooms and a handful of lonely-looking seats, so maybe the club car isn't going to be the battlefield we feared after all.
Decided what you're having?
Yes.
What are you having?
I'm having curried parsnip soup.
Curried parsnips.
Haggis, steeps and tatties. And sticky toffee pudding.
Joking. It's like it's gone 9 o'clock at night and we're having like a 3-course meal.
I'll be up at 1 AM with indigestion.
I don't think I'm bothered about parsnips. I think I'll have the mac and cheese, chocolate brownie, and I think I'll have a full fat Coke.
Full fat coke, that's all he has.
Evening meals and snacks are not included in your ticket price, so if you fancy a bite to eat or a dram in the club car, make sure to budget a few extra pennies. Otherwise, it could be a long night of watching other people enjoy their dinner while you're tucking into that complimentary bottle of water and bar of chocolate. So what you got?
This is curried, parsnip, something soup.
You see, the thing is, on paper it doesn't sound nice, does it? Curry and parsnips.
Curried parsnip soup.
Or is it actually? Is it nice?
Delicious.
Is it nice? Would I like it?
You'd like it. Yeah, you would.
Oh, nice then.
That was lovely.
What we having next?
Happy scoops and tatties I've got. I thought you were having mac and cheese.
So did I. We ain't got any mac and cheese, so I've got to have a cheese toast instead. Some nachos. Yours looks nice though.
It is lovely.
Just a heads up, only those with a booked sleeper room can access the club car. If it's busy, guests in the club rooms do get priority. So if you're booked into a classic room, you might have to work on your most endearing "please let me in" face. Right, belly's full, time to waddle back to the room and get ready for bed. There's a few different rooms and ways that you can do this. The room that we originally booked is called the Caledonian double ensuite room. We paid 520 quid for the two of us. Individually, I think it's about 420 if you came on your own. Now, you get the same perks as you would in this room, but it is bigger, it's wider because you get a double bed in there. That's the room that we booked. Now, because of events beyond anybody's control apparently, that room isn't available anymore, so we ended up with this. This is the club ensuite room, which is essentially the same, except it's got these two single bunk beds rather than the double bed. It is a lot tighter, I'm not going to lie. It is very, very cramped in here, uncomfortably cramped for me, for a couple of reasons. I'm quite tall, so it's difficult to move about, and because of my anxiety, I don't like being really kind of cramped in a place like this. For a lot of people, it might be absolutely fine, but I do find it uncomfortable, kind of physically and mentally as well. Now, this, if you were to get this room instead of the double, would be, I think, £375. If you were by yourself, I think if you were as a couple, it's 410. So there's not actually that much price difference, and I think you would get a lot more with the double room if you were going to do that. Now, if you get this room or the double, you do get a few other perks. You get access to the first class lounges. Now, again, unfortunately for us, it wasn't open in Inverness, so we couldn't use that either. But you do get access to the club car, which is where you get your food and drink, and you also get a complimentary breakfast. Now, there is another room, which is a classic room. You don't get the ensuite shower and toilet with that. You have to use the ones in the corridors. Well, not in the corridor, it's still a private toilet. And these bunk beds, that costs, I think, £255 if it's just for one person, and £335, I think, if it's for a couple. Same size room as this, no ensuite, no access to the lounges, and no complimentary breakfast. You can still go in the club car if availability is there, but people in the club rooms do get priority in the club car. Now, if you're not bothered about a room, if you just want to sit down, a comfortable seat, don't get access to the club car or breakfast. You do get a socket to plug your phone into if you want, and you get a little sleep kit with some earplugs and things. A seat just in the normal carriage, I think, is £89. Now, all of these are as of when we recorded the vlog. They do seem to sell out, especially the double rooms. When I looked forward 3 or 4 months, a lot of those were actually sold out, so it's wise to book those ahead. The other rooms, like this one and the classic and the normal seats, they tend to be available even at short notice. I think there was about 5 or 6 of these rooms available on this service tonight. So it's definitely the double club rooms that tend to go faster. And then I think you might get discounts for booking in advance, rail cards and things like that. So it's worth checking if you're thinking about travelling and seeing the best deal that you can get. So there's no table or chairs or anything in here. On the bottom bunk, you get this like headrest. And then my feet are kind of against the toilet door. One thing I have just been checking out is the Wi-Fi, because they do advertise Wi-Fi aboard the train. Now, one thing you've got to take into consideration is the geography of the north of Scotland. From Inverness down to Edinburgh, there's a lot of nothingness, so they do advertise Wi-Fi. I was doing some speed checks between Inverness and here, and it's a bit weird because sometimes the Wi-Fi just about works. I mean, like no more than 1 or 2 meg upload and download, and I did find that my own 4G signal on the phone was a lot better. I was sometimes getting 20 plus meg when the train Wi-Fi was not getting anything. So it is worth, if you're thinking of kind of downloading or watching any kind of TV or on demand stuff, it might be an idea to download that before you set off, because the Wi-Fi isn't that great. It might be better as we get further south, but north of Edinburgh, not having much luck. My 4G is good, but you do have to be careful on how much data you're using, depending on what data plan you're on.
A pro tip from me: if you're sharing a bunk room with your other half, do not, I repeat, do not both try getting ready for bed at the same time. Unless, of course, you enjoy getting elbowed in the stomach, the passive-aggressive sighing, and the inevitable "no, you move" argument. The smarter and safer option is for one of you to wait on the bed while the other wrestles with the tiny space to get sorted. Then switch. That way, you'll both make it till morning without too many bruises or divorce papers.
You all tucked in then?
I'm all tucked in. I've got my little special gift here. Soap. I might need. I won't need earplugs. This is a blast from the past. I've got more room in here than I had in the Navy.
I was just going to say, does it not remind you when you were in the Navy?
Yeah, it does actually.
Can I have your earplugs if you're not using it? Thank you.
Welcome. Can I go to bed now?
Okay. Are you going to be able to sleep, do you think?
Me? I've slept in noisier places than this. My goodness.
Do you want me to turn the light off for you?
Yes, please.
All right, put your eye patch on then.
I'm going to bed. Night-night.
Okay, night-night.
This is the first time I've ever slept in a bed on a train. We're at a station at the moment, so it's very quiet, but I've got my earplugs. I normally sleep with earplugs in anyway, and I'm hoping it's a little bit like when we used to have the boat in a storm, when it used to rock kind of gently from side to side. So the noise of like the rain on the boat and the movement never bothered me. In fact, it was actually quite soothing. It used to help me get off to sleep. But let's see what this one's like. Right, I'm going to try and get some sleep. Night-night. It's about 10 to 2, I think, in the morning. We've stopped for some reason. I don't know whether we're at a station or what, but we've stopped and not had much sleep so far. It's not that noisy, and I've got my I did have my earplugs in. I've just taken them out to do this. It is quite kind of bumpy, which is the thing that's keeping you awake. It's like the only thing I can compare it to is being sat in the back of an ambulance. So you kind of lay down, if you know what I mean, and you kind of feeling every bump in the road, on the rails anyway. So I'm getting some rest. I'm quite chilled, but I don't think I've actually slept yet. And I've got to be up in about 3 hours for the breakfast, so let's see how we go. Let's see if we can get some sleep. Night-night.
I'm not saying that it's uncomfortable, but I really would recommend going for that larger double room if you want a bit more comfort during this overnight service. I woke up more than a few times, and I actually thought about going down to the club car, but I didn't want to disturb Sean, who was sleeping like a baby.
Good morning. I think we're in Crewe. I looked on Google Maps before I started filming, and it said we were in Crewe. Time to get up and get some breakfast. I did get a little bit of sleep. I think the train goes very, very slowly through Scotland, and then as soon as it comes out of Scotland, for some reason it's like whoosh, and the track seems to be smoother too, and I think I was able to rest a bit more, so I got some sleep. It might have only been a couple of hours, But I do feel all right. I don't feel tired or anything. So I'm going to get up. I'm going to get his lordship up, and we'll go get some breakfast. Wakey, wakey, Mr. Fox.
Oh, brightness.
It's not bright at all.
Oh.
This is bright.
Oh.
Did you sleep all right?
I think I've had about 3 or 4 hours.
Really? That's not too bad.
Before we head for breakfast, I really need to try the shower. Now, I'd heard all sorts of things about these showers, some people saying that they're freezing, and others reckoning the water barely trickles out like some leaky teapot. There's only one way to find out. I'm going in. First impressions? Well, it's a shower-toilet combo. You're essentially showering with the toilet. And the setup's a bit like those public bathroom taps, where you have to keep pressing the button to get more water. And that's fine, unless you've got a load of shampoo in your hair and are standing there blindly flailing around for the button. That said, the temperature was decent. It got warm in about 30 seconds, and the water pressure not bad either. Although it is hard to fully relax when the entire bathroom's getting a rinse, including that big wooden toilet lid, which looked like it's about to start floating away like a makeshift raft. It did feel a lot like showering back on the boat, compact, efficient, and with that ever-present awareness of not using too much water. If you've got long hair, well, it's not the place for a deep conditioning spa-style experience, but if you just need to wake up and freshen up, it does the job. Up, showered and dressed, it's time to cross our fingers and hope the breakfast order was actually collected last night. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long journey, fueled by a bit of disappointment and one of those biscuits from my bag. We make our way back to the club car and result with the first ones here, which means 2 things. 1, no awkward seat shuffling, and breakfast arrives in record time. Within minutes, we're greeted with a glorious full Scottish breakfast, along with some fresh coffee and orange juice, and it's all included in the ticket price. This makes a change. It's just gone 6 in the morning, and as we speed towards London, the sun's beginning to rise. It's a pretty stunning view to accompany the bacon, eggs, tatty scones, sausage and beans. Not a bad way to start the day, especially considering an hour ago I was showering with a toilet.
So how did he sleep?
Not too bad, actually. Not too bad. I know it's a bit difficult for you because you hate confined spaces. He freaked out.
I had a proper meltdown last night and I totally lost it. I knew that it was going to be tough. Most people might be all right in confined spaces like this, but it proper tipped me over the edge.
See, stuff like this, beds like this have been in my past in the Navy. Less space than this.
Yeah. With other boys.
So
with all the other Navy boys, which is probably why he enjoyed it so much. Do you know what? It actually, a lot of this reminds me of being on the boat. Right, a few examples. So the narrow corridor outside,
yes,
is like walking through the boat. You have to kind of pass each other like you do in the tango. The other thing is when you press the tap for the water, you hear the pump come on.
Yeah, you do.
And that just takes me straight back to Silver Foxes listening to the water pump. In the night it got very warm, and then it got cool, and then it got warm again.
Yeah, I found that even though we've got our temperature turned down.
You've got like a temperature control, so you can control the heating, but I remember kind of coming round from dozing and I was like red hot.
Yeah, I had to kick my quilt off.
Yeah, I just stripped everything off. And then like half an hour later I was quite chilly again. So, and the noise, I had my earplugs in, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
I think it's the rails. And the other thing I've noticed is it kind of takes forever to get from Inverness to the kind of borders just south of Glasgow, around Lockerbie and Gretna.
Yeah.
And the majority of the journey is that, and there's quite a few stops. But then as soon as you get into England, it's just like, so the rails are a lot smoother, so there's less noise and less moving about. And I think we're about 20 minutes outside London Euston.
Yeah, if that.
And it's so quiet, we're not moving about as much. I wish it had been like this when we were trying to get some sleep.
Yeah,
because it probably would have been easier to get some sleep.
Yeah, we're on the West Coast Main Line now, so it's pretty well maintained and it's quite smooth.
Saying that, I do feel quite well rested.
Yeah, I do.
And even though I was really anxious and kind of melting down last night, I did manage to chill once I was up there. I did manage to, I got some rest, let's put it that way. I probably need a nana nap later on.
You might do.
But
I'll put you on a tube train, you can just go.
But we're not far out of London now, so we're going to get things packed up and ready to go and get off at London Euston.
Yay!
Right on the dot at 8 o'clock we rolled into London Euston. Great news, except it's a Friday morning, which means we've arrived at the height of rush hour. And if there's one thing London commuters love, it's definitely not people fresh off a sleeper train bumbling around with the luggage and a lingering smell of breakfast. But here's where booking a club room pays off. Instead of diving headfirst into the chaos of the underground, we made a beeline for platform 1 and the Caledonian Sleeper lounge. Inside there's free coffee, cookies, and most importantly, some peace and quiet. And let the worst of the rush hour pass while we sip our coffee, watching all the poor souls outside battle for space on the escalators. Sometimes patience really is a virtue.
I'm lost. Any idea where we are?
My family home, Bookhouse.
Right, we're here in London, and I'm still rocking about. Are you? Do you still feel like...
No, I'm okay now.
It's like when we were on the boat, every time you used to get back off the boat, you would still be swaying when you were stood at urinals or something like that. There's an actual medical term for it.
Is there really?
And it's a French phrase called mal d'embarquement.
Really?
And it's like sea legs or land legs or,
Yes.
in this situation, train legs, where you still, it's just kind of that rocking, where you still feel in the movement of the train. And it's a little bit disorientate, meteorologic, it's you know what I mean. I tell you what, there's a lot of people here.
There is.
And a lot of noise and sirens and things like that. But yeah, it's taken us, from setting off from home, down to Inverness, on the train, down to London, and then getting down here to Sean's ancestral home.
3 weeks took us.
Yeah, it's taken us about 14 hours. The train journey was about 11 hours. And we thought we'd just let you know our kind of tips if you're thinking of doing this same trip. I reckon my first tip really is that, well, not to do it in the first place. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean, if you're really uncomfortable in small enclosed places, and it really triggered me because up on that top bunk, I wasn't able to sit up properly. I wasn't able to move. It was hurting my back. It was hurting my hips, and just getting in and out of that position wasn't very good. So if you're not very good in those tight spaces, I actually wouldn't bother. I would travel another way, maybe by plane, or just sit in the normal seats and go down, but don't go in that room. Because at least in the seats you can get up and walk about the carriage.
Yeah, you can.
In the room you can't even get up and walk about. There's not enough space for 2 people to walk about in there. So yeah, if you don't like good small spaces, don't go in there. Second tip is that it's a cashless train. And we noticed when we were in the club car that somebody wanted to pay by American Express, which they didn't accept that either.
No.
So if you're going on the train and you want to buy anything like food or drinks, then you definitely need to take a debit or credit card, but not American Express. But you can use Apple and Google Pay on your phone as well.
As long as it's not American Express.
The next tip, which wasn't really applicable to us, but we did notice somebody on board asking about it, is that there's no smoking or vaping on the train at all, or at any of the stations. So if you're getting on this train for an 11-12 hour trip and you want to smoke,
Tough.
well, you can't really. You'd have to go out of the stations, and you wouldn't get enough time because the trains don't stop long enough for that, do they?
That's it, no.
So if you smoke or vape, well, you're going to have to do without or find something else to do.
Yes.
Now, if you're taking luggage, this really depends where you sat. If you're in the seated carriage, i.e. you've not got a room, then you can take like a small bag, but you'd need to put that in the locker. Now, there's some lockable lockers with like a combination lock
There is.
above the seat. But if you've got any larger items of luggage, you're going to have to ask a member of staff, and they can put that in one of the luggage rack things.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got a room, that's a little bit easier because there's space under the bottom bunks or under the bed to put a couple of cases. But again, you can ask the train staff to put that in one of the lockers if you've got more luggage than that. But generally only 3 pieces, 2 larger ones and 1 small bag,
Yes.
like Sean's lovely pink handbag.
I don't have a pink handbag. It's purple.
Now the next tip is about Wi-Fi, because the train company do advertise free Wi-Fi throughout the journey, and you can log on to their Wi-Fi. You don't need to put any personal details in. You basically just press accept and it connects you to the internet. Now, because of the geography of the UK, especially the Highlands of Scotland,
The phone signal's not that good, especially out in the sparsely populated areas up in Scotland.
Their Wi-Fi is just using the same signal as your phone.
Yeah, and the thing I noticed is I did a few speed checks and I actually compared the train's Wi-Fi to our normal 4G data signal. And what we found is that the Wi-Fi on the train was actually really poor compared to our 4G. So even up in Scotland, the Wi-Fi was coming in at like 1 megabit download and sometimes nothing for upload, but yet the 4G service on his phone was coming in at like 20 meg plus. So there's definitely a difference between the data on your own phone and the train's Wi-Fi.
I think it's because of the amount of people sharing it.
So my tip is don't rely on the train Wi-Fi because it's advertised.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got plenty of data on your phone, and even better, if you're planning on watching any films or TV shows on your phone on the train, download them before you get on the train, because you might not be able to use the Wi-Fi to do that when you're on there. Now, the next tip wasn't really applicable to us, but if you're travelling on one of the other sleeper trains that comes in from Fort William or from Aberdeen, they join together at Edinburgh, and what you find is that some of the coaches might change. Now, depending where you've come from, you might actually have to change coach, or you might find that the club car, where the food and drink are, isn't where it was before you arrived in Edinburgh.
It's moved.
So Sean thought he'd actually had a little bit too much to drink when he got... But no, I'm only joking. But just be aware of that sometimes they join coaches together at Edinburgh, so things might not be where they were before you got there.
Yeah.
My next tip is all about staying clean and fresh and tidy. I like to stay clean.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
I have a couple of showers a day. Now, the room we booked had a shower, but you might be in a classic room that doesn't have a shower, it just has a wash basin, or in one of the seated coaches that doesn't have access to any of that, just the public toilets on the train. Now, you can buy a token, it costs £10, and it will give you access to one of the station lounges, and in there you can get yourself a shower and get yourself freshened up.
And they're all clean and tidy.
Yeah, so if you take a small like microfiber towel or something that you can put in your baggage, you might be able to buy a token, use one of the showers in the station lounges, so you arrive in London all fresh as a daisy. The next tip is not really a tip, I think it's just experience from us. And that is about sleeping. Now, it's called the Caledonian Sleeper service.
Don't expect to sleep.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect... I mean, some people, sure, normally can sleep anywhere,
Yeah.
and he'll just drop off within a few seconds and that's him, gone. It is a long trip, and some people might expect to be able to just sleep the whole way through it. It is quite bumpy, especially through Scotland, which is the majority of the duration of the journey.
Yeah, as soon as you get on the West Coast main line, it's quite smooth.
But for a good 4, 5, 6 hours, it is quite bumpy, quite noisy. I measured with my little decibel app, and
It's got a new app.
it gets up to like 60, 70 decibels sometimes, but it is quite rocky, and if you're a light sleeper, you might find that you would find it very difficult to sleep. So I wouldn't get on there expecting to get a good night's sleep. It's more of an experience than it is a sleeper train. I think if you wanted to sleep, maybe get an aeroplane. Do you know what I mean? And then get a hotel and sleep it off in the morning. But I think the way round that is, don't get on there expecting to get a good night's sleep.
No.
It is more of an experience, and maybe just enjoy the experience.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The other thing is maybe not to eat or drink too much before you try and go to bed, because if you're laying down on a full stomach and you're getting rocked about a bit, if you suffer from motion sickness, then it probably could trigger that, to be honest, and that's just going to make you even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Next tip is to pack something comfortable, especially if you've got one of the rooms booked. So you don't want like the buttons and zips from your jeans and his posh blouse digging into your bosom while you're trying to get comfortable. So take some joggers or some shorts or just something to change into, because the rooms are quite warm, and it's better to be comfortable when you're sat in there for such a long time.
Do what I did, take all your clothes off.
Final tip is when you arrive in London Euston, it's going to be about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Now on a weekday, it is going to be very busy in London at that time.
Rush hour.
So if you're trying to get the tube anywhere, you're going to find that it's, well, packed. And if you've not had a lot of sleep and you've got a lot of cases, well, it might not be the best time. So our tip is to get off the sleeper train, head across to platform 1 at Euston Station, and about halfway up the platform is the Caledonian Suite. and you can go in there, you can make yourself comfortable, get yourself some tea, coffee, juices, and some cookies, and just chill out for an hour or so.
And that's where you can have a shower as well.
Yep, you can have a shower in there. Just wait for the rush hour to die down a little bit, and then you can head out when it's a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
So that's the polished, picture-perfect version of the Caledonian Sleeper experience, the one that YouTube and most travellers might expect to see. But what if I told you that wasn't the full story?
What you just watched was filmed 5 days ago. I needed some time before recording this, time to clear my head from the stress of the trip, to process it without emotion clouding everything, I think. It was supposed to be special, a surprise for Sean, an anniversary treat. And I booked it weeks ago with the perfect plan in mind. We'd always wanted to experience the Caledonian Sleeper train, a bit of a train geek, of course, and this was his chance to do it. So we'd take the train down to London, we'd visit the COVID memorial wall so Sean could leave a message for his dad in one of the hearts and show his sister. Then we'd see a show and fly back to Inverness, something that we'd never done before. And everything was arranged, every detail thought out. I'd got it sorted, but then a couple of nights before we were due to set off, I got the call. A lady from the Sleeper train customer service, polite, but just really detached, and told me that the double room that we'd booked specifically wasn't available anymore, some kind of fault with the carriage. And the only other option was the bunk room. Now, you already know I can't do confined spaces, and I booked the larger room for that reason. It wasn't just this trip, it was an anniversary, it was a moment that mattered, and I was panicking, and all I got was, it's not our fault, there's nothing we can do. And I tried explaining in every way that I could. The hotel was booked, the flights were booked and paid for. Changing now would mean losing hundreds of pounds. But every time I said anything, all I got was, it's not our fault, there's nothing we can do. It just kind of felt hopeless. It wasn't the inconvenience, it was just the lack of care, I think. I wasn't a customer, I was just a name on a list to be shifted. And when she said to me, well, you should have taken out travel insurance, I just thought, I'm not getting anywhere. She doesn't understand. There was no point trying to appeal to a better sense of judgment. So I asked to speak to a manager, and to be fair, he was really understanding. He tried to find solutions. He offered us a taxi to Aberdeen or Glasgow where there was a double room, but that was like a 5-hour taxi trip and then losing half of the train trip. So it just, by that time, the experience was already ruined. So I just felt I had no choice but to accept that bunk room and just hope for the best. But the disappointments just kept coming. The night before we left, I got another text message from the Caledonian Sleeper company saying that the lounge in Inverness was going to be closed. Then once we got on the train, that the only meal that I liked on the menu wasn't available. And I get it, first world problems and all that lot, yeah, but when you sold a flagship experience, these things matter, and when you start stacking them up one on top of another, the excitement just gets chipped away and replaced with frustration and stress. And then came the worst part. Within an hour of being in that tiny enclosed space, the panic attacks started. A full-on meltdown, just curled up in a ball, emotionless, totally detached, while Sean sat there helpless, watching it all unfold. Anybody that's watching that has autism or ADHD will understand that you can't just snap out of it. And that night kind of set the tone for the rest of the trip. Panic attack after panic attack, Leicester Square, on the tube, at the airport, just one after another. It's humiliating and exhausting, and the worst part is the impact on Sean. It's not just me who suffers in those moments, he does too. And that's what breaks me the most about this. It's not a poor me thing. I'm not here for sympathy. I knew the risks. I know that faults happen, and I made the choice. Most people who take the sleeper train will have an incredible time. And I know that if we'd gotten what we'd paid for, we would have too. But instead, I think I was just put in an impossible situation, and it was like lose the money or take the risk. And I took the risk for Sean because I wanted him to have a great time. But here I am 5 days later, still not feeling myself. And the truth is, it's caused tension with me and Sean. That's why I'm sat here on my own filming this. We'll be fine, we always are, but
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of what you see on YouTube is what people want you to see, isn't it? Filtered, the highlights. This is the truth. We'll be fine, and we'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Bye.